Several people seemed very impressed by my mountain village, so I figured I'd go ahead and show off how I went about building one of its main components, the towers. Please note, the tower I build in this video will not be a replica of the village's towers, rather it will simply be built in the same style, albeit with a different palette and better detailing. First things first, we obviously need to find a location suitable for our tower. I recommend building on the side of a hill or mountain. It is ever so slightly harder, but the finished project will look many times better. Something about building a tall structure on top of a tall terrain amplifies its grandeur. Quite obviously, the first blocks we're going to place down will mark out the base of the tower, and we can build skywards from there. Make sure to get down a nice circle before you do anything else, something like what you see here. 9 blocks wide, consisting of 4 3-block long portions and 4 L-shaped formations in between. All the same, you can adjust this as you see fit. This is your world, you're the creator. Once you're ready, go ahead and start building up your circle. I use cobblestone, as it suggests a strong, sturdy tower. Choose any block you like, but cobblestone will always have a special place in my heart. Once you've reached a good height, work in 4 slopes to the base, something that works well with the circular shape. If you find this difficult, I see no problems in copying what you see here. This balcony is completely optional, but I felt it was necessary to add in so close to the beginning because it will help to define the height of my tower. After the base portion of your tower is completed, go ahead and fit a smaller cylinder inside of it. Make sure it's made of a complementary block. And now comes a slightly monotonous task. We're going to copy and flip the stone base of our tower to the top. Same height, same shape, same everything, but upside down. While I'm doing that, I just want to explain that this is far from a block-for-block tutorial. I'm simply going to teach you the styles and techniques I used, and I encourage you to make something different than what you see here. Make this build your own. And don't forget to take a step back every now and then. I did that quite often so I could get a different view of my tower, and in doing so found that the tower was too tall. So I went back and lowered it a couple blocks. Real quick, I went down and laid a command block and a daylight sensor. Just something that would set it to morning whenever it began to get dark. No need for you guys to squint your eyes to see what I'm building. And there we go. The stone crown has been finished, so it is now time to return to the base, where I begin shaping the dips with slabs and stairs, just to give it a smoother feel. So we'll quickly circle around as I finish that, and afterwards we'll copy and flip it to the crown, making sure that both the top and bottom sections remain the same exact size. Granted, if you think it would look better to have them different sizes, by all means, go for it. This video simply outlines my own preferences. Don't be afraid to try things that might not work. I was wondering if it would look good to further round out the stone section by using cobblestone wall, but decided against it in the end. The important thing is that I now know I don't want to do that, as opposed to wondering if I should have. After laying down a central pillar, we'll go ahead and start work on making the top. To start, simply create a bowl that rests on top of the stone crown. We'll detail it later. I begin with a layer of slabs at the bottom, where the bowl connects with the stone crown, followed by a layer of stairs that further extend the bowl outwards and upwards. Try to make sure that everything remains as smooth as possible. Now that we have the base of our bowl, we can integrate it into the tower so that it doesn't look like it just sits on top and could fall off easily. This can simply be done by replacing some of the slabs with stairs so that it looks like the bowl is latched on, as I first tried, but I think of something a lot more detailed later on.
After laying down some supports, go ahead and run a rim around them to provide the dimensions you want for your roof. You can see here that I started out with something flat, but then I decided to make this sort of concave shape between the roof and the balustrade to mirror the same shape that's found in the 2 stone pieces down below.
And, as with that cobblestone wall I tried earlier, I tried this very small shape for the roof and find that I dislike it, instead changing it to a much taller, grander shape. And this is important. As I've learned from Grian, when building tall structures, you want to make sure that the very top can be easily seen from the bottom, lest the viewer feel as though they can't get the full scope of the build. At this point, I attempt to begin thickening up the rim of the roof, but then decide that I'll have a better idea of what I want it to look like once the rest of the roof is finished. And that's what I start on over here, focusing on one of the roof's 4 sections and making sure I get a good shape there before replicating it over to the other 3 sections. I decided upon green stained clay as my roof block, as it emphasizes the fantasy feel we're going for and adds a wonderful color to the build, one that matches the forest below rather nicely. And now for something that may seem a little counterintuitive. You don't have to do this for your tower, but as of late, I found that making the roof slightly messy and making each side slightly different from the other is a great way to add texture to any medieval or fantasy build. Perfection, while great and all, is very rarely interesting. To further expand upon this imperfection, and to further improve the visual appeal of this build, let's go ahead and lace in some stained clay of a different color. I used lime stained clay to complement the green clay base, but perhaps you want to use a different combination. A few stained clay combinations that come to my mind are brown and gray, blue and light blue, yellow and orange, and so many others. After all this is done, we can go ahead and finish off the roof by adding a steeple, I guess. Maybe flagpole would be more appropriate, as we will eventually be attaching a flag to it. And, as promised, we return to the bowl to improve the way it's integrated into the tower. I choose to do this by again mimicking that curved shape that's repeated over and over again throughout this build. And I suppose that's one of the most important strategies used in this build, consistency, repeating the same techniques across various sections so that an observer's gaze can easily flow from one section to another, using all those repeated styles as transition points. Even the windows. I don't include very many windows in this build, only 4 around the middle section, but the windows, as you can see, are tall and thin, just like the tower itself. And now we can step back and take a look at what we have so far. As you can see, it looks very good as is, aside from the unfinished balcony at the bottom, and we could call it quits right here, but something would seem unfinished about it. All that work was put into creating block variation for the roof, yet the stone sections are but cobble, plain and absolutely screaming to be worked on. And so, in order to silence said screams, we'll work in other blocks to complement the cobblestone. I choose andesite and a slight sprinkling of stone bricks. We'll work on one section first, and once you get that looking exactly how we want it to, it will be a simple matter to apply the same style to the remaining section. And that looks much better, but we can further detail these 2 sections by creating a ring of logs around each one. I like to think of these as braces that prevent the walls from going outwards. Granted, this is Minecraft, so the walls will remain standing whether they are reinforced with obsidian or left floating in midair. But maybe you think you have a better idea. Again, you are the builder. Do whatever you think looks best. Here, you can see that I finally get around to thickening up my roof's rim before dropping to the very bottom of my tower's hill to spruce it up a bit. Taking advantage of Optifine and the fact that this world's random tick speed has been set to 0, I replace a majority of the dirt with grass in order to make the hill appear greener. I'm just doing a little bit of extra detailing, thickening up my log braces, and finally placing down some of the supports from my balcony. At this point, the tower itself is nearly finished. However, I wanted to add on a little extension to it. Nothing fancy, just a little entryway that will add some height and shape variation to this build. Aside from using logs to frame this part, its style is nearly identical to the tower's, which is important. If the two were built using different styles, it would look like a tower just fell from the sky and landed on the back end of some poor soul's house. So that means using my stone palette for the walls and making a tall, green roof that is framed by birch wood and laced with that complementary lime clay. Granted, I couldn't find a way to use dark oak planks. Sure, I could have shoved them in to wall up that hole underneath the peak of the roof, but the color contrast between the birch and the dark oak was terrible looking, so I went with spruce instead. After that, I go around and work in a balustrade for the balcony. I encourage you to try using something other than fences or fence gate, as you can get some really neat designs with slabs and stairs. And while the log supports look fine as they are, we can improve them by thickening them up at their bases, tapering them as we work towards the top. Do this by placing down secondary stacks of logs directly adjacent to your main pillar, making sure that their tops are at different height levels. After that, use stairs and fences to detail the tops of some of the logs. I like to keep some of the logs bare, without anything on top, but that's just me. In order to integrate our balcony into the terrain around it, we can use stairways and a fading out of the balcony's floor block. For instance, I chose spruce wood for my balcony's floor, so I'm going to mix in a few spruce wood blocks into the grass around it. As I said earlier, we will be putting a flag atop this tower, and I felt it would be appropriate to save that for last. The idea behind this flag is that it will have the appearance of flowing in the wind, and the larger you make it, the easier it will be to capture that feeling. We just need to make a large, thin mass of wool blocks, working in a wavy pattern as we go. Right now, mine will simply be a solid color while I work out the shape, but when I'm finished with that, I will add a design to it. Going around to the back, make sure that the flag is only 1 block thick, with diagonal connections where it flows outwards. This will give it the appearance of being thin and flimsy, as a flag should look. Once that's done, it's time to add your design to it. I chose a cross with some brown on the flag's tips to add even more color. I went ahead and added the custom player head on top of my flagpole. If you want to add a small golden head atop yours, use this command. And that's about it. This build is nearing completion. All that's left is my seal of approval, a hanging lantern above the entrance, and there we go. That's the completed tower. And this took me about 2 hours to complete, but I'd say it was 2 hours well spent. Let me know what you think of it, and feel free to link any screenshots of your completed builds, if you did build something like this. It'd be really cool to see what I've inspired. One way or another, thank you for watching, it really means a lot. Let me know what you want to see next, and have a blessed day/evening.